Listen closely, my friends. The most dangerous thing in your life may not be failure. It may be a mind that has been programmed to expect less from you. You can have talent and still remain stuck. You can have opportunities and still sabotage them. You can know exactly what you should do and still find yourself repeating the same excuses, the same distractions, the same fears. Because before life becomes difficult around you, your mind can become difficult against you. And when your own mind starts convincing you to quit, no external obstacle needs to defeat you. Every thought you repeat is quietly becoming a command. Every excuse you accept becomes permission. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, your mind records the decision. You are programming yourself every single day, whether you realize it or not. The question is not whether your mind will be programmed. The question is, who is holding the keyboard? Think about a computer running a corrupted program. You can change the screen, buy better equipment, move it somewhere beautiful, but if the underlying code remains broken, the same errors keep appearing. Your life can work the same way. You can change your environment, chase new opportunities, set bigger goals, and still reproduce the same results if the mental programming underneath remains unchanged. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave us language for it. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind to return to what was within his control. Epictetus taught that our judgments shape how we experience events. Seneca understood the devastating cost of wasting time in hesitation. They weren't simply trying to think positively. They were training the operating system from which their decisions came. And here's what makes this dangerous. Your mind doesn't need to destroy your ambition to stop you. It only needs to make you comfortable enough to postpone it. One more day, one more excuse, one more distraction, one more promise that tomorrow you'll finally become disciplined. Years can disappear inside that sentence. But what if success could be trained into your responses before it ever appeared in your circumstances? What if you could teach your mind to focus when others scatter, endure when others escape, act when others hesitate, recover when others collapse, and remain disciplined when motivation disappears? What if the greatest transformation isn't changing your life first, but changing the mind that keeps recreating your life? Because a successful life cannot be built permanently with an unsuccessful mental pattern. You don't rise consistently to the level of your goals. You repeatedly return to the level of the mind you've trained. And in this video, we will uncover 9 Stoic rules to program success into your mind, 10 principles designed to reshape the way you think, respond, endure, act, and ultimately become the person capable of creating and carrying the success you seek. Rule 1. Command your attention. The life you build will eventually become a reflection of whatever you repeatedly give your attention to. Not what you occasionally desire, not what you say you want. What you consistently look at, think about, consume, and rehearse in your mind. Every day, your attention is being trained by something: fear, comparison, entertainment, resentment, ambition, discipline. If you don't decide what enters your mind, something else will decide for you. Epictetus understood that the mind becomes disturbed when we attach ourselves to things outside our control. The deeper lesson is that attention is the gateway through which those attachments enter. You cannot control every event that reaches you, but you can become selective about what deserves residence in your mind. A thought can knock on the door without being given a room. That distinction is the beginning of mental freedom. Imagine a farmer with the richest soil in the world who never chooses what to plant. Every seed that falls is allowed to grow. After years, weeds would not need permission to dominate the field. Your mind works the same way. You cannot prevent every negative thought from appearing, but you can stop cultivating every thought that appears. The thought, "I'm behind," may arrive. The thought, "I'll fail," may arrive. The thought, "I'm not capable," may arrive. You don't have to fight it dramatically. You simply refuse to water it. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly pulled his attention back toward the present task and the responsibilities directly in front of him. That discipline matters because distraction rarely announces itself as destruction. It usually arrives disguised as something harmless. One more scroll, one more comparison, one more hour imagining what others think, one more conversation replayed inside your head. The mind doesn't lose its power all at once. It leaks it through thousands of tiny distractions. Think of a magnifying glass under the sun. The sunlight is everywhere, but scattered sunlight does not burn through anything. Focus it onto one point, and suddenly the same light can create heat powerful enough to transform matter. Your attention is that lens. Scattered attention creates scattered results. Concentrated attention creates force. The person who can repeatedly return his mind to one meaningful objective possesses an advantage that talent alone cannot replace. And here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes your biggest distraction is not your phone, your environment, or other people. It is your own mind constantly negotiating with itself. You decide to work, then debate whether you feel motivated. You decide to train, then negotiate with discomfort. You decide to begin, then imagine every possible reason it could fail. While you are negotiating, someone else is executing. Success often belongs to the person who spends less time arguing with the decision they already made. So begin treating attention as a form of wealth. Don't spend it everywhere. Don't give it to every opinion, every insult, every notification, every fear, or every person who wants access to your emotional energy. What repeatedly receives your attention eventually receives your identity. Give your attention to the skill you are building, the weakness you are correcting, the discipline you are developing, and the future you are constructing. Tonight, ask yourself one brutal question. If someone studied everything I gave my attention to this week, would they discover the person I claim I want to become? The answer may expose more than your goals ever could. Because before you can program success into your mind, you must first control the place where that program is being written. And once your attention becomes yours again, the next battle begins. Teaching your mind to stop interpreting discomfort as a signal to retreat. Rule 2. Train your mind to endure. The mind that escapes discomfort every time will eventually become incapable of carrying anything meaningful. Every time difficulty appears and you immediately retreat, your brain learns a lesson. Pain means stop. But every time you remain composed inside difficulty and continue with purpose, you teach it something far more powerful. Pain can be survived, resistance can be endured, and I do not have to obey every feeling I experience. The Stoics understood that hardship is not automatically an enemy. Epictetus himself lived through severe adversity and still built a philosophy around the distinction between what happens and how we respond. The obstacle is not always the thing standing between you and success. Sometimes it is the training ground that creates the person capable of achieving it. A soft mind sees resistance as rejection. A trained mind sees resistance as information. Imagine a sword being forged. The metal is placed into fire, struck repeatedly, folded, reheated, and struck again. If the metal could speak, every stage would look like destruction. but the blacksmith knows the difference between being damaged and being shaped. Your difficult seasons can feel the same. Failure, rejection, loneliness, uncertainty, and pressure may look like evidence that your life is falling apart. Sometimes they are the furnace where your capacity is being built. Marcus Aurelius faced a world filled with war, illness, political instability, and personal loss. Yet his philosophy repeatedly returned to one discipline: do not add unnecessary suffering to unavoidable difficulty. Pain may arrive without permission. Panic is optional. Difficulty may be unavoidable. Helplessness is not always required. The Stoic mind learns to separate the event from the story it tells about the event. This is where most people lose their power. They experience one difficult moment and immediately create a permanent identity from it. This is too hard. I always fail. I can't handle this. But notice the hidden programming inside those sentences. You are not merely describing the present. You are teaching your brain what to expect from the future. Every repeated interpretation becomes an instruction. If you repeatedly tell yourself that discomfort means danger, your mind will seek escape before growth has a chance to begin. Think of a muscle. You cannot build strength by asking it to remain comfortable. Resistance is precisely what forces adaptation. The same principle applies to psychological strength. You don't become resilient by avoiding every difficult conversation, difficult decision, difficult failure, or difficult season. You become resilient by encountering resistance without allowing resistance to decide your behavior. But endurance does not mean becoming a machine that ignores pain. Stoicism is not emotional numbness. A disciplined mind can feel fear without becoming fear, feel sadness without becoming sadness, and experience exhaustion without turning exhaustion into an identity. Sometimes endurance means continuing. Sometimes it means resting intelligently and returning tomorrow. Strength is not blindly pushing against every wall. It is knowing which walls require persistence and which require a change of direction. Seneca wrote about adversity as something that can reveal and strengthen character. A person who has never been tested may possess potential, but pressure reveals whether that potential has become character. Gold is not proven by sitting inside a jewelry box. Steel is not proven by remaining untouched. And your discipline is not proven on the days when everything feels easy. So stop asking, how can I avoid discomfort? Ask a more powerful question. What kind of person could I become if discomfort stopped controlling my decisions? That question changes everything. You begin seeing early mornings differently, rejection differently, failure differently, hard work differently, silence differently. The pain doesn't magically disappear, but its meaning changes. Because when your mind learns that discomfort is survivable, something extraordinary happens. You become harder to manipulate. Fear cannot easily stop you. Comfort cannot easily seduce you. Temporary failure cannot easily define you. You begin moving according to principle instead of mood. And once you have trained yourself to endure resistance, another danger remains, because even a strong mind can waste its power by chasing too many things at once. Rule 3. Choose one direction. A mind divided between 10 desires will rarely build the life promised by even one of them. Many people don't lack ambition, they lack concentration. They want wealth, mastery, recognition, freedom, strength, peace, relationships, and success simultaneously. But they give each desire only fragments of their attention. Then they wonder why nothing becomes extraordinary. Scattered fire warms a room. Concentrated fire can forge steel. The Stoics understood the power of directing effort toward what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly brought himself back to the task immediately before him, rather than allowing his mind to wander through endless possibilities. This is not about having small ambitions. It is about giving a large ambition a clear direction. A river becomes powerful because its water moves toward one destination. When it spreads across the entire landscape, its force disappears. Think about an archer standing before a target with 10 arrows in his hands. If he keeps changing targets after every shot, he may become excellent at shooting, but he will never become excellent at hitting one specific target. Your goals can work the same way. Changing direction every time progress becomes slow teaches your mind that discomfort is a reason to abandon the mission. Staying with one meaningful direction teaches it something entirely different. I finish what I begin. Seneca warned against a life scattered across too many pursuits. The tragedy isn't simply that time gets wasted. It is that your identity becomes fragmented. You become one person on Monday, another on Wednesday, another when someone inspires you, another when someone criticizes you. Every new idea feels like destiny. Every setback feels like proof you chose wrong, and your mind spends more energy selecting a path than actually walking one. There is also a hidden psychological cost to constantly changing goals. You repeatedly return to the beginning. Beginnings feel exciting because they provide possibility without demanding proof. The middle is different. The middle is where boredom arrives, progress becomes invisible, and discipline has to replace excitement. Most people don't quit because the goal is impossible. They quit because the goal stopped giving them emotional rewards before it started giving them visible results. Marcus Aurelius didn't need every day to feel meaningful before performing his duty. That is a crucial distinction. Your mission cannot depend on your mood. Some days you will feel inspired. Some days you will feel nothing. The person who only acts when emotionally activated will constantly restart. The person who acts because the direction has been chosen keeps moving even when enthusiasm disappears. Imagine planting an oak tree and digging it up every few weeks to check whether the roots are growing. You would call that irrational. Yet people do the same with their goals. Is this working? Am I successful yet? Should I try something else? They keep disturbing the process before it has enough time to produce visible results. Roots grow in darkness long before branches become visible. Your early progress may be invisible precisely because the foundation is being built underground. Choosing one direction does not mean refusing to adapt. A Stoic can change tactics while keeping principles intact. You can change the route without abandoning the destination. If one strategy fails, learn. If one door closes, find another. If reality exposes a better path, adjust. What matters is that you don't confuse flexibility with constant indecision. So choose the mountain worth climbing. Define what success actually means to you. Then stop asking every passing opinion whether you should continue. Let your daily actions become votes for one future. 1 hour of focused work, one disciplined decision, one uncomfortable action, one promise kept. Repeated long enough, these small acts stop looking small. They become momentum. And once your mind has a direction, something even more dangerous can sabotage it. The need to feel motivated before you act. The next rule will force you to confront the truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Your future cannot be built on feelings that change by the hour. Rule 4. Act before you feel ready. The most expensive lie your mind can tell you is, "I'll begin when I feel ready." Readiness feels intelligent because it gives hesitation a respectable name. You call it preparation. You call it timing. You call it waiting for confidence. But sometimes you're not preparing. You are protecting yourself from the possibility of discovering what happens when you finally try. The door to your future rarely opens because you feel ready. It opens because you move while part of you is still afraid. Epictetus understood that philosophy means little if it remains trapped inside thought. You can study discipline for years and still remain undisciplined. You can understand courage and still avoid the conversation that requires it. Knowledge becomes power only when it survives contact with action. The mind loves preparation because preparation carries almost no risk. Action does. Action exposes you to failure, judgment, uncertainty, and the possibility that your imagined ability does not match reality. Imagine a ship sitting perfectly maintained in a harbor. Its engine works. Its sails are intact. Its captain has studied every map. It knows the routes, the storms, and the stars. But it never leaves the harbor because the captain is waiting for completely calm water. That ship can possess everything required for a voyage and still go nowhere. Potential without action becomes one of the most painful forms of wasted ability. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself to return to the task in front of him. Not tomorrow's task, not the perfect version of the task now. This is where success becomes practical. Instead of asking, "Do I feel motivated?" ask, "What is the next action?" Instead of, "What if I fail?" ask, "What can I learn by attempting this?" You shift the mind from prediction to execution. There is a deeper reason action creates confidence. Action produces evidence. You cannot think your way into believing you are disciplined. You must repeatedly experience yourself keeping promises. You cannot simply affirm that you are courageous. You must watch yourself walk into situations that frighten you and remain standing. Every completed action becomes a piece of evidence against the old identity that whispered, "You can't." Think of a dark staircase. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. You only need enough light to see where your foot can land next. People often demand certainty about the entire future before making the first move. But certainty is usually a reward of movement, not a requirement for it. The path becomes visible because you walk it. Seneca understood the danger of postponement because time does not negotiate. Every day you say later is a day that cannot be recovered. And procrastination becomes particularly dangerous when it is attached to ambition. A person can spend years planning the life they intend to live while quietly becoming an expert at postponing it. But don't misunderstand this rule. Acting before you feel ready does not mean acting recklessly. Preparation matters. Strategy matters. Wisdom matters. The point is not to eliminate preparation. It is to eliminate endless preparation that exists only to protect you from discomfort. Prepare enough to move intelligently, then move. Your mind must eventually learn a new sequence. Decide, act, learn, adjust, repeat. Not fear, overthink, delay, doubt, quit. The first sequence creates capability. The second creates paralysis. So today, identify one thing you have been postponing because you don't feel ready. Make it smaller. Make it concrete. Then do the first uncomfortable part. Not because you suddenly became fearless, but because you refuse to make fear your decision maker. And once you begin acting without waiting for perfect confidence, another battle appears. Because action alone is not enough. You must learn to stop feeding the mental voice that constantly tells you why you should quit. Rule 5. Master the inner voice. The voice you hear most often is the voice that eventually becomes your identity. If that voice constantly says, "I can't," "I'm behind," "What if I fail?" your mind begins treating those sentences as instructions rather than thoughts. But if you learn to examine that voice instead of obeying it, something changes. You stop being the prisoner of your thoughts and become the person who decides which thoughts deserve authority. The Stoics understood this distinction deeply. Epictetus taught that events themselves do not simply control us. Our judgments about them shape our disturbance. That means the first thought entering your mind does not automatically deserve the final word. A thought is a visitor. Your attention is the invitation. Your action is the decision. Fear can speak without becoming your commander. Imagine standing beside a river and watching thousands of leaves float past. Some are beautiful, some are rotten, some are carried quickly by the current, others move slowly. You don't have to jump into the river and chase every leaf. Your thoughts are similar. A fearful thought appears, a jealous thought appears, a doubtful thought appears. Let it pass. The mistake is not having the thought. The mistake is building a house around it. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly practiced separating what happened from the interpretation he placed upon it. That discipline is essential for success. Suppose you fail at something. The event is simple. You failed. But the mind immediately adds a second sentence. I'm a failure. That second sentence is not a fact. It is an interpretation. And if you repeat it enough, your behavior begins obeying it. This is why language matters. The mind listens to repetition more than intention. If every setback becomes, "I always ruin everything," you are programming helplessness. If it becomes, "This exposed a weakness I can train," you are programming adaptation. The external event may be identical, but the internal instruction is completely different. Think of a commander receiving reports from the battlefield. A wise commander doesn't believe every messenger simply because the message arrived urgently. He examines the report. Your mind needs the same discipline. When fear says, "Everyone is ahead of you," ask, "Everyone?" When it says, "You can't do this," ask, "What evidence proves that?" When it says, "You're too late," ask, "According to whose clock?" Seneca understood how much suffering comes from anticipation. We often experience the pain of an event before the event even happens. We rehearse rejection before asking. We experience failure before beginning. We imagine humiliation before speaking. The mind can make you suffer for a future that may never arrive. A trained mind learns to bring fear back from the imaginary future into the present moment where an actual decision can be made. But mastery of the inner voice does not mean replacing every negative thought with fake positivity. Stoicism is more powerful than that. You don't tell yourself, "Everything will definitely work." You tell yourself, "Whatever happens, I will deal with it." That is stronger because it does not depend on the universe cooperating with you. Confidence becomes rooted in your capacity, not your prediction. Every morning, your mind offers you a script. You can repeat the old one, or you can begin editing it through action. I am weak becomes, I am training. I am behind becomes, I am building. I failed becomes, I learned. They rejected me becomes, I remain responsible for who I become next. These aren't empty affirmations. They are more accurate interpretations that return responsibility to where it belongs. And when you master that inner voice, you discover something profound. Success is not only about what you can force yourself to do, it is also about what you refuse to let your mind convince you to abandon. But there is one enemy even more subtle than negative thinking, the addiction to comfort. Because once your inner voice becomes stronger, your mind will try another strategy. It will offer you convenience in exchange for your potential. Rule 6. Make discipline your default. Your future is being built by what you do on the days when you have absolutely no desire to do it. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is the person who owns the house. If your actions depend on excitement, your progress will always rise and fall with your emotions. But when discipline becomes automatic, you stop negotiating with yourself every morning. You don't ask whether you feel like becoming successful. You simply perform the next required action. The Stoics understood that character is not created by occasional heroic moments. It is built through repeated choices. Marcus Aurelius did not need every day to feel inspiring before fulfilling his responsibilities. That is the deeper lesson. You don't become disciplined by waiting for discipline to feel natural. You make it natural by repeatedly doing what you said you would do. Imagine a path through a forest. The first person walks it once, then disappears. Another person walks the same route every morning. At first, both leave almost no mark. But months later, one path has become visible. Repetition turns intention into a road. Your brain works similarly. Every repeated behavior becomes easier to repeat. What initially requires force eventually becomes your default response. This is why small disciplines matter more than dramatic promises. Waking when you said you would. Finishing the work you started. Putting the phone away when you need to focus. Training when you're tired. Keeping a promise nobody else knows you made. These actions look insignificant individually, but together they are constructing your identity. You are teaching your mind what kind of person you are. Seneca warned about the danger of postponing life. But postponement is often disguised as comfort. I'll start tomorrow. I'll work when I'm motivated. I'll change when things calm down. The problem is that tomorrow keeps moving. Comfort asks for one small surrender at a time until surrender becomes a lifestyle. Think of a fortress. Its walls don't collapse because of one drop of rain. They weaken through repeated erosion. Your discipline can erode in exactly the same way. One unnecessary delay, one broken promise, one exception, one more excuse. None feels dangerous. But repeated often enough, they teach your mind that your own decisions are negotiable. And once your mind learns that your word means nothing, every future goal becomes harder to protect. Discipline, however, does not mean punishing yourself. It means removing unnecessary negotiation. If you have decided to work for an hour, work for an hour. If you have decided to train, train. If you have decided to stop feeding a destructive habit, stop reopening the argument every night. The strongest disciplined people are not constantly fighting themselves because they have already settled the debate. Epictetus taught that freedom comes through mastery of yourself. That is why discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is its foundation. A person controlled by every craving is not free. A person who cannot tolerate boredom is not free. A person who needs constant stimulation is not free. Freedom is being able to choose the right action even when the wrong action feels better. And here is the deeper twist. Discipline doesn't just change what you accomplish, it changes what you believe about yourself. Every promise kept becomes evidence. Every difficult task completed becomes evidence. Every temptation resisted becomes evidence. Slowly the question changes from, "Can I do this?" to "What else can I do?" So stop trying to transform your entire life overnight. Choose a few non-negotiable actions and make them boringly consistent. Let repetition become your teacher. Let consistency become your confidence. Let discipline become so ordinary that you no longer need applause for it. Because eventually, success stops being something you chase emotionally and becomes something your daily behavior is quietly manufacturing. Rule 7. Stop measuring yourself. The moment you measure your life against someone else's life, you hand them the ruler with which your worth will be judged. Someone will always be richer, faster, younger, stronger, more recognized, or further ahead. If your confidence depends on being ahead, you have already accepted a game you can never permanently win. The Stoic mind does not ask, "Am I better than them?" It asks, "Am I better than the person I was?" Marcus Aurelius warned against wasting life in comparison and speculation about others, because attention spent outside your control is attention removed from your own character. Think about that carefully. While you are watching someone else's progress, your own unfinished work is still waiting for you. Comparison feels productive because your mind is active, but activity is not progress. You can spend hours studying another person's life and make absolutely no movement in your own. Imagine two trees planted on opposite sides of a valley. One receives more sunlight. The other receives more rain. One grows quickly in the beginning. The other grows slowly, but develops deeper roots. If the second tree spends its entire existence staring at the first, it will never discover what its own soil can produce. Your circumstances, timing, talents, and path are not identical to anyone else's. Comparing the outcomes without comparing the conditions is intellectually dishonest. The most dangerous comparison isn't always jealousy. Sometimes it is discouragement. You see someone succeed quickly and conclude that you're late. You see someone's perfect result and decide your imperfect beginning is worthless. But you're comparing your backstage to their stage. You see the achievement. You don't see the years of repetition, rejection, sacrifice, uncertainty, or invisible preparation that produced it. Seneca understood the danger of measuring life through external possessions and status. The Stoic asks a harder question: what kind of person am I becoming? Because wealth can increase while character decreases. Recognition can grow while peace disappears. Followers can multiply while self-respect becomes weaker. A person can win publicly and lose privately. And there is another trap: comparing yourself to your imagined future self. You create a perfect version of yourself, disciplined, wealthy, confident, successful, and then use that imaginary person as a weapon against your present self. That doesn't create growth. It creates contempt. Your future self should be a direction, not a judge. Measure progress by movement, not by perfection. Think of a mountain climber looking upward every few minutes and becoming discouraged because the summit still appears impossibly far away. If he refuses to look back, he may never notice that the valley has already disappeared beneath him. Progress can be invisible when you only look at the distance remaining. Sometimes you need to turn around and recognize how far you've already climbed. So compare intelligently. Compare your discipline now to your discipline before. Compare your courage now to the fear that once controlled you. Compare what you tolerate today to what you tolerated a year ago. That is comparison that creates power instead of stealing it. And when someone else's success triggers insecurity, don't immediately attack the feeling or attack the person. Study it. Jealousy can become a map. It may reveal something you deeply want but haven't admitted. Instead of saying, "Why do they have it?" ask, "What is their success showing me about what I need to build?" Their achievement can either become evidence against you or information for you. Your path does not become smaller because someone else's path is beautiful. Another person's victory does not subtract from your potential. There is no universal clock for human development. Some things arrive early. Some arrive after years of preparation. Some arrive only after you become capable of carrying them. So take your eyes off the scoreboard and return them to the work. Because once you stop measuring yourself against everyone else, you will discover another uncomfortable truth. Even when nobody is competing with you, your own excuses may still be competing against your ambition. Rule 8. Stop negotiating with your excuses. Every excuse you repeatedly accept becomes a command your future self will eventually obey. The dangerous thing about excuses is that they rarely sound weak. They sound intelligent. The timing isn't right. I need more knowledge. I'll start when things settle down. Sometimes those statements are true, but sometimes they are simply fear wearing the mask of logic. Your mind can become extraordinarily creative when it wants to protect you from doing something difficult. The Stoics were ruthless about separating reality from the stories we tell ourselves about reality. Epictetus focused on what lies within our control, because excuses often begin where responsibility ends. You may not control your circumstances, your past, other people's behavior, or the obstacles in your path. But you can control whether you use those realities as information or as permission to remain unchanged. Imagine a prisoner who has been given the key to his cell but keeps explaining why he cannot leave. The walls may be real. The years inside may be real. The damage may be real. But if the door is open and he continues sitting there, the prison has moved from the walls into his mind. This is what happens when excuses become habitual. Eventually, you stop needing an external obstacle. Your own reasoning becomes the lock. Marcus Aurelius faced circumstances most people would consider legitimate reasons to surrender. War, illness, political conflict, personal loss, uncertainty. Yet his philosophy repeatedly returned to the same battlefield, the present moment and the action required of him. The question was not, why is this happening to me? But what does my character require from me now? That question removes the comfortable escape route. There is a difference between an obstacle and an excuse. An obstacle says, this is difficult. An excuse says, therefore I cannot act. One describes reality. The other makes a prediction about your ability. Learn to separate them. If you lack knowledge, learn. If you lack skill, practice. If the strategy fails, change the strategy. If you need rest, recover. But don't turn a temporary limitation into a permanent identity. Think of a mountain blocked by a fallen tree. A weak approach is to stand there for hours, complaining that the mountain is unfair. A disciplined approach asks, can I climb over it, go around it, move it, or find another route? The obstacle hasn't changed. Your relationship with it has. Success often belongs not to the person with the fewest obstacles, but to the person who spends the least time arguing with obstacles that cannot be argued away. Seneca understood that delay consumes something more precious than money, life itself. You can recover money, you can replace equipment, you can learn a new skill, but yesterday cannot be negotiated back into existence. Every unnecessary delay quietly converts potential into regret. And here's the twist. Your excuses don't only delay the goal, they train your identity. Every time you say, I can't, when you could at least attempt, you strengthen avoidance. Every time you say, I'll do it later and repeatedly prove yourself right, you train procrastination. But every time you act despite an excuse, you create contradictory evidence. Maybe I am more capable than I thought. So when an excuse appears, don't fight it emotionally. Question it. Is this a real limitation or a comfortable explanation? Is action genuinely impossible or merely uncomfortable? Do I need a different strategy or simply more courage? Those questions can expose the difference between wisdom and self-deception. You don't need to become someone who never has reasons to stop. You need to become someone who examines those reasons before obeying them. That is mental discipline. Because when you stop negotiating with your excuses, you create something far more valuable than motivation: self-trust. You begin knowing that when you say you will do something, your future self can believe you. And once that trust is built, there is one final enemy waiting behind it: the fear of failure itself. Rule 9. Turn failure into fuel. Failure only becomes a defeat when you allow it to write the final sentence about who you are. A failed attempt is an event. The meaning you attach to it is a decision. One person loses and says, "This proves I'm not capable." Another loses and asks, "What did this expose that I can now correct?" The event is the same. The programming is completely different. The Stoics understood that reality does not owe us successful outcomes simply because we worked hard. You can prepare honestly and still lose. You can act with courage and still be rejected. You can make the right decision and still experience pain. Stoic strength begins when you stop demanding that effort must always produce the result you wanted. Your responsibility is the quality of your action, not the universe's agreement with your desired outcome. Imagine a scientist conducting an experiment. The experiment fails. Does the scientist bury the laboratory and declare himself worthless? No. The failed experiment becomes information. Something didn't work. A variable was wrong. A method needs adjustment. The failure narrows the field of possibilities. Your mistakes can function the same way, if your ego doesn't prevent you from studying them. Marcus Aurelius understood that obstacles could be incorporated into the work itself. This is one of the deepest Stoic ideas. The thing that blocks your path can become part of the path. Rejection can teach discernment. Failure can expose weakness. Loss can reveal attachment. Criticism can reveal a blind spot. Difficulty can reveal a level of strength you didn't know you possessed. Think of a blacksmith examining a blade after it bends under pressure. He doesn't necessarily throw the metal away. He puts it back into the fire. The bend becomes part of the information used to strengthen the next version. Your failures can do the same. They show you where your structure is weak. The mistake isn't that you discovered the weakness. The mistake would be discovering it and refusing to strengthen it. But there is a dangerous habit that follows failure. Turning one event into an identity. I failed becomes, I'm a failure. They rejected me becomes, nobody will ever choose me. I lost becomes, I always lose. That is how an event becomes a prison. The Stoic mind refuses to confuse what happened with what it means forever. Seneca wrote about adversity revealing character. You can understand why when you look closely at failure. Success often allows you to hide weaknesses because the result is rewarding. Failure removes that disguise. It shows you exactly where your preparation, judgment, patience, or discipline was insufficient. That information may hurt, but information that hurts can still be valuable. And don't romanticize failure. Not every failure is secretly good. Some failures cost money, relationships, opportunities, and years. Some mistakes are genuinely destructive. Stoicism does not require you to pretend otherwise. The power is not saying, failure is wonderful. The power is saying, even this can be used. That is a much stronger position. After every serious failure, ask 3 questions. What was within my control? What did I misunderstand? What will I do differently next time? Then stop worshipping the mistake, because reflection without action becomes another form of rumination. You can analyze your failure for months and still remain exactly where you were. The purpose of looking backward is to improve the next step, not to build a permanent residence inside regret. Every time you recover intelligently, your mind receives a new message. Failure did not destroy me. Every recovery adds evidence. Eventually, you stop seeing setbacks as threats to your identity because your identity is no longer built on always winning. It is built on being capable of returning. And that creates a rare kind of confidence, the confidence that doesn't say, "Nothing will ever go wrong." It says, "Something may go wrong, and I will still know what to do next." Once you reach that level, failure loses much of its power over you. Success was never meant to begin with a number in your bank account, a title beside your name, or applause from people who may forget you tomorrow. It begins in the invisible place where your thoughts become decisions, decisions become habits, and habits become character. If you can train that place, you can change the direction of your life, not overnight, not through wishful thinking, but through thousands of deliberate moments when you choose discipline over comfort, action over hesitation, focus over distraction, and purpose over impulse. Remember the 10 rules. Control your attention, endure discomfort, choose your direction, act before you're ready, master your inner voice, make discipline your default. Stop measuring yourself against others, refuse to negotiate with excuses, turn failure into fuel, and become someone capable of carrying success without being controlled by it. These are not 10 motivational ideas to admire. They are 10 ways of thinking to practice until they become part of your character. Your mind is not a finished building. It is a workshop. Every thought is material. Every habit is a tool. Every difficult decision is another strike of the hammer. You are either strengthening the structure or weakening it. And the frightening part is that both processes happen quietly. Nobody may notice the day you become more disciplined. Nobody may applaud the moment you stop making excuses. But one day, the results of those invisible choices will become impossible to hide. So stop waiting for your life to give you permission to become the person you know you can be. Start programming the mind that your future will depend on. When fear appears, train your response. When failure arrives, extract its lesson. When comfort calls, remember the price of staying the same. When the world doubts you, return to your principles. And when success finally comes, carry it with the same discipline that built it, because the greatest victory is not getting everything you wanted. It is becoming someone who no longer needs to betray himself to get it. Build that mind, and success will no longer be something you desperately chase. It will become the natural consequence of the person you have trained yourself to become.